I'm going to call the semi-monthly meeting of the Coastal Resources Management Council to order. Today is Tuesday, August 27, 2024. I would ask that the record reflect the council members that are in attendance as well as the staff members that are here this evening. First matter on our agenda will be approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, that being July 23, 2024. And entertain a motion to accept them if anyone is ready.
Motion approved.
Motion has been made by Mr. Russolino. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Izzi. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Subcommittee reports. Mr. Willis?
Mr. Chair, we held a rights of way subcommittee just a little earlier today, but we had to postpone it due to a medical emergency with one of the participants. So that particular meeting and the issues that were on that agenda will be continued to a date in the future.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of Mr. Willis from the council as it relates to subcommittee? Well, staff reports, Mr. Willis.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I just have a couple of items to talk about. One is a continuation of a matter I brought up earlier. We are working with the governor's office, the town of Charlestown, DEM, emergency management on basically looking at the structure of the Charlestown Ninigret Pond breachway. The west wall was compromised with the winter storms this year to a point that wind and waves bring in a lot of sediment into the breachway, causing some health and safety issues. So we're looking at ways to find a solution, an immediate solution prior to this winter to prevent that from continuing to occur and minimizing, if not eliminating, the public health and safety issues with that. So that's an ongoing matter that we're working with all parties on. And just a reminder, we are required by the federal government to undergo an evaluation every 5 years by our federal partner, NOAA. And that 5-year evaluation period is up, and we have scheduled our evaluation for NOAA to come into Rhode Island, meet with any number of stakeholders, you all, the public, and that is later in October. We have a public hearing on October 15th, right in this room at 6 o'clock, to entertain public comment for that period as well. So there'll be more information on that, but on our website is the notice period, is the notice for the public meeting that what was called the 312 evaluation team will conduct, and I'll have more information as we get closer to those dates. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Willis from the council? Seeing none, we will move on to the next agenda item. Applications requesting modifications to previously approved assents before the council for review and action. First matter would be 2021-09-093, William and Nancy Gilbane. It's an application to modify an approval not constructed, parentheses, no assent has been issued, close parentheses, a residential boating facility to include removal of the permitted 12x12 boat lift and reduction of the permitted 4x64 fixed pier to a proposed 4x50 fixed pier, approximately 14 feet shorter than the permitted structure. It is located at plat I-J, lot 64-2, 1159 Succotash Road, Narragansett, Rhode Island. And parties are here on that.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Mark Russo. I represent the second one on the agenda, the Douglas Mancosh Trust. And all three of these feature a common site plan because there's been a resolution among neighbors that the staff helped us with. Would it be possible to present them all at once? Obviously, they can be voted on separately, but it may make sense to present them as one.
Who's here on behalf of Gilbane and Walker? Any attorneys on that one? No. Okay. I would turn to Attorney DeSisto to opine on this.
Well, you know, this issue has been bouncing around for a little while. There's a lawsuit here, isn't there, Mr. Russo?
There's an appeal of Mr. Gilbane's assent, yes.
And there was a settlement between the parties, correct?
There was. All the parties that the staff has commented on these applicants, very congested area. And the staff has commented a couple of times that really the neighbors need to get together and come up with a plan that works for everyone. And believe it or not, it doesn't happen that often, but they did. They got together with staff guidance and they came up with a common site plan that Mr. Runge can present later and obviously answer any questions. That's why we thought it might make sense to present them as one and have the staff comment on all three of them, and then we can obviously answer questions.
That's correct. And assuming that there are approvals for all three of these applications on tonight, that would resolve the appeal
It would,
for the Gilbane application that was approved by this body, correct?
that's correct.
Okay, and the same engineer was used for all three of the applications.
Each party had an engineer, and then GZA through Mr. Runge collectively put together a site plan with everyone's assistance.
And that's the one that's been reviewed by staff. Yeah, I recommend that you do this because I think it's going to explain all three of the applications. They really are got together on this for this in this congested area, which you recall from the Gilbane application. But it does require a vote from the council.
Okay. Any questions of Attorney DeSisto from the council? Is anyone in a position to make a motion to allow them to proceed together?
Make a motion to consolidate all three.
Okay, motion has been made by Mr. Rossellino. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Gomez. Any discussion? Hearing none, I will poll the council. Mr. Rossellino,
Aye.
Mr. Gagnon,
Aye.
Ms. Reynolds,
Aye.
Mr. Flynn,
Aye.
Mr. Izzy,
Aye.
Mr. Gomez.
Aye.
I too, Raymond Coyer, vote aye. So the motion to let them, to join them together for hearing this evening has been approved. Who's got this one?
Tracy.
So I would ask for our staff presentation, and Tracy still has it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As stated a moment ago, very congested area. This is Jerusalem, area of Narragansett, right along with St. Judith on Breachway. Pre-existing commercial, residential, marinas, Galilee Port right across the area. All three of these structures in some form predate the council. Various permitting histories, some in compliance, some not. We essentially ended up in the last probably 5 years or so with the Mancosh commercial pier built slightly out of conformance under a 2019 maintenance permit, which dated back to the 1976 first approval. We had the Gilbane dock that existed prior to the council that was removed because it had no authorization from the council and was approved by the council in 2022, but it's been appealed by Walker. So it's not the decision issue, but we haven't issued an assent on it. Nothing's been constructed. There's nothing currently there. And then the Walker Marina, which existed, I don't have the original number in front of me, but since 99, there was a modification. There was 2 corrected assents for boat count and layout. And all 3 are currently in to modify and or authorize as-built existing conditions. And in Walker's case, put back a few that were out of conformance that needed permitting, reconfigure it slightly. It's actually a reduction of 299 square feet in the Marina Perimeter Limit. Mancosh will be establishing the structural perimeter limit, and Gilbane will be modifying his last approval to remove the boat lift that the council worked out and shorten the entire facility. So none of the facilities require variances. They're all pending Army Corps review. That process has been a little convoluted lately. The SAV and public access are essentially, in my opinion, not impacted. Public access, nothing's changing. It's existing beach area backed by bulkheads and seawalls. And the SAV exists in this area in small patches here or there. Reconfiguring within a marina perimeter is allowed. There's no new floats going over any eelgrass, and the Mancosh facility is pretty much in the same layout that it's been. So I don't even think anything is really further seaward except the Walker MPL slightly. So staff recommended no objection, actually approval on this, sorry. After they came in with a common site plan, which you should have, The last write-up was in response to an April letter staff sent out after meeting internally how to handle their proposals. And they came right back in and we sent everything out to notice in June. No comments were received. Staff recommends approval. However, the common site plan did come up that part of the Assent stipulation would indicate that CRMC can enforce that negotiated plan that they've developed between themselves through our Assent.
Thank you. Any questions? Ms. Sylvia from the council,
Just,
Mr. Gomez.
you discussed Gilbane and Walker, are we including the third lot?
Mancush was also, yeah, that's the commercial structure, so
Alright, so you went through that also.
all three, that's the commercial pier to the
Yeah,
north,
I
the
got it.
long one. Yep.
I just,
Gilbane's a little
I
one.
just didn't hear that third name.
Yes,
I had to put my
sorry,
hearing aids in. I
Mancosh.
got it now, but as long as you discussed those three, I'm happy.
Yeah, and this is again Doug Mancosh dock here. And in the middle is Gilbane. And at the end on the side again is Paul Walker.
Mr. Run, you're not sworn in yet. So before you continue on, why don't you raise your right hand? Right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and spell it for the record.
Igor, I-G-O-R, Runge, R-U-N-G-E. And I'm GZA employee.
Thank you. Prior to the presentation, I would ask William and Nancy Gilbane and or their representatives, as well as Benjamin and Karen Walker and or their representatives, come forward. If you need to bring a chair up here, it's, I mean, your application too, and if we're hearing them together, let's have everyone here. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. I'm gonna swear that before we can start.
I'm gonna swear you guys in too, so if you could raise your right hands. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
All right, starting with you, why don't you state your name and spell it for the record and then move down the line.
William J. Gilbane, Gilbane.
Ben Walker, BENWALKER.
Mark Dowdell, DOWDELL, Dowdell.
And Mr. Russo, you're here for the Mancosh Trust.
Yes, I am. And Mr. Mancosh is here as well.
Okay.
Okay, please proceed. I don't know if you're speaking first, we're hearing them together, so.
Yeah, if everybody is okay with it, I thought it might make sense for Mr. Runge to just present the common site plan and just kind of outline what's been agreed to and what we worked through with staff. And then if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Perfect, okay.
I can hold that for you if you want.
May I go quickly? Oh,
Manually.
thank you. No, I'm okay. This is Jerusalem down in South Kingstown, very congested area, extremely congested. It's been going on for years. And this is so nice that at least there's been some discussion now, and maybe something can get worked out. I've got some aerial photographs of the area in 97, 2007, 14, and 2024. And again, I'll take the 2014 one, and we've got, this is the area. This is the Mancosh dock, the long one. The middle one is the Gilbane dock, that's no longer there. And the third one is the Walker Marina situation. And it's changed somewhat over the years. I guess most recently, Mr. Gilbane had to remove his dock because it was never permitted appropriately. So that one is gone now. This is the situation this spring. And the big changes that, the common site plan now, and, I've looked at all the Assents to previous ones, and there's been all kinds of discussions going on. And they were always concerned that, hey, why doesn't everybody get together? Maybe you can come up with a plan. Again, very congested, but it looks like it's these three. And the latest site plan, the common site plan that was developed and agreed by everybody, looks like this. And once again, this is the long dock. This is for Doug Mancosh. And he had a dock there for many years. It was a commercial dock, 165 feet long. And they redid the dock a couple of years ago. And when they started doing it, I guess the contractor said, well, maybe we can do a floating dock instead of a timber pier dock. So that was what was done. Essentially, the dock width is the same. The boardwalk itself is 6 feet, but the dock itself now may be a few inches wider because the piles are within the boardwalk now. So you got 6 feet plus 1.5 feet on each side for the piles. And the previous dock had the piles on the outside because that was a timber pier pile. Same length, same basic boardwalk length, but a little bit wider. And SAV underneath it, again, very little, almost none, because they had a dock there. And we looked at some pictures when the dock was gone and there was zero. And SAV survey was done and it was basically clean, that area. And the next one then is Mr. Gilbane. He's right in the middle, a tough spot for a small little dock, almost no room because of this large marina on the other side. And we were able to make this now where this one now is 50 feet, like Tracy said, instead of the 64 feet. So we're saving 14 feet shorter than what was approved. No lift station. And this will be, again, right now, a pier dock. And I should mention also about submerged aquatic vegetation. It's really important. I had a great discussion with Eric Schneider. He's the chief biologist over at DEM and deals with eelgrass and submerged aquatic vegetation. And they've got a little office too, a little further down here, a small coastal area, DEM office, where he's there sometimes and they got a launch. He says, Igor, there's really not much SAV in this whole area. It's just been so populated with boats going in and out, et cetera. You know, he was more concerned about things in Potter Pond or some of the big areas. But he says here, you're probably, no matter what happens here, it's not going to make a big difference in terms of the existing SAV. There's just so much traffic there and existing dots there. And so that was the Gilbane ones in the middle. Submerged aquatic vegetation, again, survey was done. There was some in certain areas on the outside, but like I said, again, it was great to talk to Eric Schneider, who seems to know a lot of this stuff. And the third one is Walker. And this is, again, the common plan. What we were able to do was reduce the size of the Marina Perimeter Limit smaller. And these in yellow are the new docks. He's had them in there for a while. They had to remove them because they weren't, again, permitted properly. And now we've designed it here, which stays within Marina Perimeter Limit. He's able to put, the 10 boats, which has been approved in there at the same time, and reduce the size of the perimeter limit. There's a federal channel out here and not affected. Actually, it's a little bit closer too, and that's okay. And actually, one of these pictures you can see, there's been a big vessel, this one on the 27. This is where the basically the Block Island ferries and all the big ferry boats travel on there. It's not affected. And Marina Perimeter Limit for the Walker situation is something like 300 square feet smaller. And we went to DEM and also got the a new permit for them, water quality cert, so that the federal government now knows that the Marina Perimeter Limit is smaller. So that's essentially the changes that we've done. And it seems like everybody, the most concerned again are the three people here. That's who's impacted. There've been no comments from anybody else. Nobody else is really involved. It's just keeping their boats in this area and being able to properly get in and out. I guess that's what I've got to say. Is there any questions or anything?
Any questions, Mr. Runge from the council? Okay.
I think that's all we have, Mr. Chairman. I would like to thank staff. They spent a lot of time with us. I work with governmental agencies quite a bit, and sometimes they don't get credit for the amount of time and help they provide. They were excellent to work with on this, and we appreciate it.
Okay. Any comments from Mr. Gilbane, Mr. Walker, and I'm sorry, Michelle, last name.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments from you three? Anything you'd like to add?
I think everybody worked out a solution that works for everyone, and appreciate the help by the staff as well and everybody's help.
Okay.
Yeah, the staff was very helpful to be black and white in what was acceptable or not. Very helpful.
Tracy, any change in your opinions
No,
from the presentation this evening?
No, I thought that was excellent. I have one thing to make clear, that this is not the case of seeking approval for something out of conformance and just getting a permit for it. and just blanket permitting this. Each of these individually could have gotten the same permits. They were all objecting to each other had they done that. So that's why it kind of played out so long over time.
Okay. Any questions of Tracy? Mr. Flynn?
Just one question, if this were to be approved, would we have to include a condition of approval for the US Army Corps of Engineers review and approval? Is that something we would have to do?
We typically, when the Army Corps has not issued their approval for the same project that they're reviewing that we are, we have a stipulation that says all other state or federal permits shall be required prior to. So that's a standard stipulation that'll be in there.
All right. So we're gonna take them one by one as far as a vote. So first, we will have 2021-09-093, William and Nancy Gilbane. Is the council in a posture to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion. Based on the testimony that we heard tonight, based on the staff report and the plans and documents that were submitted in support of this application, I would move for approval of the application of William and Nancy Gilbane.
Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Mr. Flynn. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll poll the council. Mr. Russolino?
Aye.
Mr. Gagnon?
Aye.
Ms. Reynolds?
Aye.
Mr. Flynn?
Aye.
Mr. Izzy?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
I too, Raymond Coyer, vote aye. Gilbane's application has been approved unanimously. Next will be 1994-09-044. The matter of Benjamin and Karen Walker.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion. Based on the testimony heard at tonight's hearing and based on the staff report and the documents submitted as part of the application, I would move for the approval of the application of Benjamin and Karen Walker.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Reynolds. Any discussion? I'll poll the council. Mr. Russolino.
Aye.
Mr. Gagnon.
Aye.
Ms. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Flynn.
Aye.
Mr. Izzy.
Aye.
Mr. Gomez.
Aye.
I too, Raymond Coyer, vote aye. The Walker application has been approved unanimously. Next will be 1976-04-013, Douglas G. Mancosh Revocable Trust.
Mr. Chairman, I'll
Yes,
make a
Mr.
motion. Based on the presentation that was made at tonight's hearing and based on the staff report and based on the documents submitted as part of the application for this project, I would move for the approval of the application of Douglas G. Mancosh Revocable Trust.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Flynn. Any discussion? I will now poll the council. Mr. Russolino.
Aye.
Mr. Gagnon.
Aye.
Ms. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Flynn.
Aye.
Mr. Izzy.
Aye.
Mr. Gomez.
Aye.
I too, Raymond Coyer, vote aye. The Mancosh Revocable Trust application has been approved unanimously. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
In favor of support again, but when it comes up, right?
Yeah. Neighbors getting along. We should have them stop.
Okay. Next matter is an application requiring administrative review before the full council for review and action. 2024-04-008 Watch Hill Fire District. Application to replace, repair split rail fencing on property located at plat 185, lot 31, 151 Bay Street, Westerly, Rhode Island. And I believe, Emily, you have this one? Who's other parties present for this one? If you could come forward. Good evening, Attorney Main.
Evening, Mr. Chair, council members.
Just for the record, if you could identify yourself and the gentleman.
Absolutely. Robin Main on behalf of the applicant, the Watch Hill Fire District.
Peter August, Watch Hill Conservancy.
Thank
Mr.
you.
August, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth will help you God?
I do. And August, AUGUST, like the month.
Thank you. Please, Emily.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This application is a maintenance application for an in-kind replacement and leveling of existing split rail fences. They were initially approved administratively in 2019. The split rail fences are designed to keep pedestrians on pre-existing paths through Napa Tree Point rather than create new paths through the dune system that would in turn trample vegetation. No variances were needed for this, but we are here this evening to include the reception of multiple objections. The objections received mainly concerned 2 points. One, the claim that split rail fencing to be maintained crosses and obstructs Fort Road. And 2, the applicant's failure to acknowledge the existence of Fort Road in their application. Additionally, 1 objection was related to the issue of proper ownership documentation. For the record, it is not the intent of the staff report to evaluate Fort Road as a right-of-way. The exact location, ownership, and use of Fort Road is being actively litigated. CRMC is not a party in that litigation. Rather, the staff review evaluates the geologic and environmental impacts of the proposed maintenance work on coastal resources. As we know, dune health is directly related to the amount of vegetation present within the system. Beach grass decreases harmful erosion, but is easily killed by human foot traffic. Split rail fences are the preferred method for management of foot traffic across these systems, as there are no impacts on sedimentary processes. By the management of 8 well-marked paths instead of dozens of ephemeral paths, the dune's susceptibility to erosion is mitigated and the scenic and ecological value of the dune is preserved. The existing paths accomplish the dual goals of valuable public access and conservation of the dune system as a natural habitat. It is the opinion of staff that this application meets the requirements put forth in the CRMP, and staff recommends approval of the application with the standard stipulations. Additional stipulations will also be added regarding Fort Road and be prepared. Should the Rhode Island Superior Court rule on the location, ownership, and usage of Fort Road as a right-of-way, any fences that obstruct the area shall be removed. In lieu of fencing, the applicant shall be authorized to place informational signage on their property that may request that pedestrians stay on existing trails and do not harm the dune habitat.
Thank you. Any questions from Emily, from the council to Emily? None at this time, okay. Attorney Main, please.
Thank you, Chairman. If I may, I'm going to introduce Mr. August as part of the client and applicant team. May I reserve about 2 minutes after any public comment to make my own comments about the application and why we're here? Thank you. Mr. August?
Yeah. Good evening. My name is Peter August. I am the president of the Watch Hill Conservancy and have headed up the Napa Tree Science Advisor team for 13 years. I'm a professor emeritus in the URI Department of Natural Resources Science, where I taught GIS classes in landscape ecology. I'd like to take a moment to explain why it's very important to repair our split rail fence on Napa Tree. Since 1972, the Watch Hill Fire District and its Park Commission and Napa Tree Point Conservation Committee actively stewarded the conservation with CRMC's authorization. That was before my time, and I would like to limit my remarks to the period for which I have been personally involved. In 2010, the Conservancy commissioned the Rhode Island Natural History Survey to conduct ecological surveys of Napa Tree to evaluate the most important management challenges and recommend stewardship actions the Conservancy should take to mitigate them. I was a member of the team of experts conducting the assessment. The Conservancy was particularly interested in learning best practices to achieve 2 fundamental management goals: protect the plants, animals, geology, and ecosystem processes on Napa Tree, And number two, ensure the public has access to Napatree and will have an enjoyable, safe, and informative visit. Following this study, I headed up the creation of a team of science advisors to guide our stewardship. It consists of a coastal geologist, originally Dr. John Boothroyd, and after his passing, Dr. Brian Oakley, an invasive plant biologist, Hope Leeson, a plant ecologist, Dr. Keith Killingbeck, a Napatree policy expert, Janice Sassy, an ornithologist, Dr. Peter Payton, and a marine scientist, Alan Devaney. We engage our advisors in all of our stewardship activities. The Natural History Survey strongly advised us that we manage the social trails on Napatree. Social trails are paths regularly used by visitors and result in trampled vegetation. In 2012, we GPSed and mapped all the paths on Napatree. There were no marked trails at the time, and visitors crossed from bay to beach willy-nilly along the whole dune system. Our mapping showed there were 64 different social trails spanning 2.4 miles in length. This means there were 2.4 miles of trampled native dune grass, which, as we've heard from staff, is important in dune stabilization. This kind of habitat, I might add, is called maritime herbaceous dune, and according to the Department of Environmental Management's 2015 Wildlife Action Plan, is in the highest ranking category of habitat in the state of need of conservation. In 2013, the Napatree manager instituted a new trail management policy. 8 paths were chosen to permit easy and convenient visitor transit between bay and ocean, and were conspicuously marked as approved dune crossover paths. This trail network was only 0.3 miles long. With funding from 4 different competitive grants from the CRMC Habitat Restoration Program between 2014 and 2015, we began an aggressive program to restore native vegetation in the reclaimed 2.1 miles of worn social trails. Under the guidance of the Rhody Native Program and Rhode Island Natural History Survey, we planted 2,590 individual plants of 20 different species on closed trails. We chose plants native to this kind of environment and of value to pollinators and wildlife. This is in addition to 13,000 beach grass plugs that we planted on trails and washover sites following Superstorm Sandy. Trails where restoration occurred were marked at their ends so visitors would not trample the newly planted vegetation. In 2015, we were advised by the U.S. National Park Service to use split rail cedar fencing to delineate conservation areas. It's long-lasting, beautiful, sends a clear message to visitors that the area behind it is protected, and most importantly, allows for the natural flow of sand. On this best practice guidance, we began replacing the traditional dune fencing, which traps sand and disrupts natural dune geological processes. The plant restoration and split rail fencing cost $156,498 and was spread over 5 years. $103,000 was provided by competitive CRMC coastal and estuarine habitat restoration funds. $53,000 was paid by the Watch Hill Conservancy, the Fire District, and the URI Coastal Institute Grants and Aid Program. In the storms that we had in December and January, wave energy and erosion reached the base of the split rail fencing on the ocean side, knocking down some of the fence structure, putting it at risk of washing away in the sea. Napatree manager Daniel Cole gathered the damaged fencing and disassembled other fencing in jeopardy of further damage and stored the material off-site so the cedar timbers would not be lost. Our CRMC maintenance assent application before you is to put the fence back in place and to re-level other areas of split rail fencing where sand has built up or been blown away. We wanted to do this before the summer season so visitors would know not to climb the dune into the plant restoration zone. Unfortunately, since the fencing has been down, 2 new trails have emerged ascending the dune, and the vegetated dune crest now has 340 feet of newly trampled beach grass. We work hard to develop free educational programs to encourage visitors to Napatree. The split rail fencing is a simple, clear, aesthetically pleasing, and effective tool in letting them know important conservation work lies beyond the fence. We are most grateful for CRMC's support of our conservation work on Napatree, and we hope the Assent application is approved soon so we can reassemble the split rail fencing and protect our dune system. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. August from the council? Okay. Anything else at this time?
Not at this time. I may have comments. Have a
Okay.
public comment, please.
Is there anyone else present this evening to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone present this evening to speak in opposition of this application? Okay, come forward, sir. Why don't you guys sit there, Robert, if you could just surrender the table and you guys can come back up. Sweatman. No, okay. Everyone is not present.
You're here in opposition, Mr. Pelzo, correct? As a member of the public.
That's correct.
Okay.
Could you state your name and spell it for the record, please?
Anthony Palazzolo Jr., ANTHONY, PALAZZOLO JR.
Okay.
Mr. Pelzo, please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Okay. And what's his name? Richard.
Go.
Richard Langseth, Langseth.
All right, Mr. Langseth, please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
All right, please proceed.
So as I always do, I would like to start with a disclaimer that I'm licensed to practice law in the states of Connecticut, California. I'm not licensed to practice in the state of Rhode Island. Nothing I do or say here should be construed as an opinion of law. I am representing no clients who have an interest in this matter. I can't because I'm not licensed in Rhode Island. I have done a fair amount of advocacy for shoreline access, and I've never taken a penny for it. I'm here today, and as I always am, in my personal capacity and would-be user of the property. I applaud the Watch Hill Fire Districts and the Watch Hill Conservancy's environmental efforts as just described to you. In my opinion, however, all of it was done in total disregard for the public's right to access Napatree Point, which is a very complex matter that extends back to probably at 1903 when the road was originally constructed. The fact of the matter is that the town of Westerly did designate Fort Road as a town right-of-way on October 6th, 2008. In doing so, they attached several maps showing exactly where that right-of-way is. And I believe this is in the record, and I believe it indisputable that the fence that the Watch Hill Fire District constructed completely blocks that town designated right of way. In my personal opinion, looking across the record of various assets, it's fair to say that no sooner had the town of Westerly designated Fort Road as a town right of way that the Watch Hill interests went to work obfuscating that right of way and, in my opinion, attempting to eliminate it. I base that on my review of the assents that I've seen from CRMC, their assents to plant vegetation on the Napatry Point from 2008, 2014, 2019, and of course this application. Now, I focused on the 2019 application and this one, and I find it troubling that the fire district never gives you the information that there's a town designated right of way out there. Their attorney was present throughout all of the town council meetings, which resulted in that right of way. They were fully aware of the designation of that right of way in 2008, yet they didn't inform the CRMC in the 2019 application. Didn't inform you in this application. I had to inform you about that. So I do believe that their work provides a fundamentally important environmental function, but there's also, I believe, another function here that is not being presented to you. But I believe it's revealed in Gerald Petros's letter to Bill Conley on November 17th, 2022. Gerald Petros, of course, is the attorney for the fire district. And he writes to Bill Conley explaining reasons why the Fort Road right of way should not be respected. And on page 3, he says, Fort Road private easement also terminated for another reason. The original easement recorded in 1903 and again in 1909 is not referenced in any deeds in the chain of title of the properties on Napatry Point since 1926. Rhode Island's Marketable Record Title Act extinguishes easements or rights of ways not referenced in a deed within the last 40 years. Only easements that are still readily observably present on the subject property survive the 40-year automatic expiration. So they plant vegetation on the right of way. They put up a fence to tell people not to go there. And across the great sweep of time, the right of way falls into disuse, becomes overgrown, is not readily observable, and therefore that can be used as the factual predicate for erasing the public's right to traverse Napatry Point. I provided in the record state aerial photographs from the state of Rhode Island and the state of Connecticut spanning from 1962 to 2011. In my opinion, these aerial photographs from the state clearly show that the Fort Road right of way was being used by the general public through 2011, when the fire district's effort to fence off the right of way and plant on the right of way really took hold. I believe that part of what these people are doing here is trying to erase the right of way so that they can then have a judge declare it invalid on a technicality. Now, I don't think there's any dispute here that the purpose of the fencing is to keep the visitors off the right of way. Robin Main's letter of June 25th, 2024 to Jeff Willis specifically says that the purpose of the split rail fencing is to protect the sensitive dunes by discouraging visitors from leaving the marked pathways and traversing those dunes. Those dunes, that's the right of way. And I included in a recent correspondence to the council a copy of the 2019 Assent, where they also requested the ability to repair the split rail fence. That application is replete with statements to the effect that the purpose of the fence is to prevent pedestrians from using this path on Napatry Point. So, I have a real problem with all of that. Now, however, I do applaud Emily Hall's work on this matter. And I think she has come up with two possible resolutions, and I support both of them. The first suggestion is that apparently it's not the present position, but in the file, was that the Wild Chill Fire District leave gaps in the fencing 20 feet wide so that the right of way would not be obstructed. I applaud that. I think that's the right thing to do. The rub here, though, is you have to know which 20 feet to leave open. So they're going to have to conduct a survey, find out exactly where the right of way is, and leave gaps so that the fencing blocks every other direction, but not through the right of way. And I would support that, as long as they survey it from Bay Street out to their fence and put that in the record. Her second proposal, I think, is even more clever and better for everybody involved. She suggested that the fire district argue under Rule 1.3.6A3 that the fire district has already provided sufficient substitute access that it would be reasonable to allow the split rail fence to block the right of way. I am here to argue in favor of the Watch Hill Fire District's grant of substitute access. It can be found in CRMC Assent 87-10-066, which occurred obviously in 1987. The fire district requested permission of the CRMC to repair their seawall with a special exception application under Section 130. The transcript of that proceeding indicates that the Watch Hill Fire District agreed to grant access to Napattree Point to satisfy the requirement of Section 130 that the project not be primarily for private use, but for public use. The result of that assent in that proceeding was that CRMC added stipulation Q to the assent. The stipulation Q says, quote, pedestrian traffic to Napattree Point shall not be restricted, period, close quote. That's it. I'm going to repeat that, please. Pedestrian access to Napattree Point shall not be restricted. Now, I trust the environmentalist who says that it's best for the environment that they plant the vegetation and they fence it off. And they have, I trust him when he says they have a good network here to allow people to access the shore, both the north and south side of Napattree Point, and that they've worked it out. They have a plan. They know what they're doing. What I would like is CRMC to say that stipulation Q is still effective and enforceable, and it is the access that is sufficient substitute access permitting Watch Hill to fence off the right of way. Otherwise, shouldn't do. Just take a vote and say the path network that the Watch Hill Fire District has worked out satisfies the stipulation Q from the 1987 asset. I would be great with that. People would be able to walk from Bay Street to the Squamicut Club and then enter their path network. They'll follow the path network to the south shore of Napattree Point, from the north shore of Napattree Point, exactly where they want the visitors to be. The only thing that I would request here is that the CRMC say that that is stipulation Q at work. It is sufficient substitute access, so it's okay for them to otherwise fence off a designated right of way that would otherwise be improper. If it's okay, I would like to distribute one map to members of the council.
So,
You know, there's a deadline to file written statements, which is 6 days before the hearing.
No, I wasn't aware of that.
Okay, it's in the management rules and regulations. You can use it for reference, but it won't be made an exhibit.
Okay, may I pass it
Go
around?
right ahead.
Who should I pass it to?
I'll take it.
Thank you.
Emily, please.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is important, you know, relevant to what we're talking about now, not necessarily critically important. The fire district has presented in this file their conservation easement and the associated map with that easement. However, what I found in interacting with governmental officials regarding this conservation easement, the fire district loves to talk about how public access is guaranteed by their conservation easement in perpetuity. Everything's great, everything's great. Sometimes they include their map, sometimes they don't. They did include the map to the CRMC. However, it's basically illegible, and I think you might not have really appreciated what that map teaches. So I have taken that map and I've colored it with orange and blue. Blue is Bay Street, which is the closest public road to Napattree Point. And all of the areas that I colored in fluorescent orange are not covered by the conservation easement. The white areas are. And the primary purpose of providing this to you is to show you that the conservation easement and the guarantees of public access in there don't apply the 1,000 feet from Bay Street out to the Misconnery Club. The only way for the public to take advantage of the public access in the conservation easement is to use a jetpack or a helicopter from Bay Street past the Misconnery Club to reach those white areas. And so in my opinion, the conservation easement is essentially illusory. It's there to make you think that they're concerned about public access, but there is no practical public access. Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Palazzolo from the council? No. So Langseth.
Hello, Richard Langseth. I'd like to bring to your attention, there's another party involved in all of this, and I haven't heard anything from them. It's called the WHFD Beach Condominium. And this condominium was established in 2013 and runs from Bay Street all the way down to the Harriet Mifflin property on the Atlantic Ocean, and then north to the Cove or the Inner Bay, and then back to beyond the Yacht Club. And this condominium association has 3 condominiums. And in addition to that, open land that has not been established as condominium yet. The 3 condominiums, the one that's most interesting is where the Misquamicut Club is. That's called condominium number 3. And the Watch Hill Fire District sold that property to the beach club for $2 million. And what it did at the time, if you read the condominium agreement that's filed in the land evidence, you will see that a 15-foot right-of-way is established across the entire condominium to the Harriet Mifflin property. And it runs on the inward shoreline on the Narragansett Bay side for 15 feet, and it runs and it goes inward with the high tide. So as we have tidal rise, and it explains in the condominium agreement, where we have sea level rise, that 15-foot easement runs south and south and south until there's nothing left. I would suggest that before you make a decision on any of this, that you look at the land evidence, get this condominium association in here, have them explain why they have that 15-foot easement and how that impacts the fence. It just seems to me that you can't make a decision until you look at that. Thank you very much.
Any questions of Mr. Langseth? Okay, anyone else this evening that wishes to speak in opposition of the application? Come forward, sir.
Please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Please state your name and spell it for the record.
Sure, my name is Ellen Kane, K-A-N-E, 76 Winnebago Road, Westerly. And I'm speaking in opposition to the request for the fencing. Probably because my understanding, I'm not a lawyer, has been that no one is allowed to block a right of way. And since there is current litigation going on, I think it behooves waiting until the litigation is settled. I'm also very concerned about the what I see as sort of a persistent attempt to erase Fort Road, whether it's as an address, whether it's across Napatry Point, including in the Watch Hill Fire District official minutes. In the minutes over the last few years, that the mention, where it's mentioned there, it pertains more to the dredging. But they've actually gone back to take out Fort Road and replace it with kind of a euphemism calling the access path to Napatry Point. And you have to wonder why is that being done? Why are they scrubbing the minutes of Fort Road, which has been used, for how many decades, and replacing it with kind of a very awkward phrase, access road to Napatry Point? And I think it is part of, a larger plan because Fort Road is inconvenient to the fire district. And I think to the Conservancy as well, although I certainly, I'm very grateful to the Conservancy for the conservation work they've done on Napatry Point. But the Watch Hill Conservancy is a 501c3 organization, and it says their mission is to conserve, enhance, and maintain the natural, scenic, and historic values of Watch Hill and Little Narragansett Bay. And I find it very interesting that Fort Road, Fort Mansfield at the end of Napatry Point, certainly the key part of the history of Watch Hill and Westerly. It's sort of been erased. There's not mention of that. And I think it ties into the wish to just go ahead with this plan and then see if the path is sort of erased. So I would hope that you can take this into consideration. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Any questions of Ms. Kane? No? Anyone else wish to speak in opposition? Okay, Attorney Main, come back.
Thank you for your attention. And first, I'd like to thank Emily Hall for her staff report and the time and effort that she put into that report, which was an excellent job. I want to level set here. Why are we here tonight? The Watch Hill Fire District is here under a maintenance assent to repair the split rail fence that CRMC has previously approved, and that was damaged heavily during the coastal storms this past winter. We want to reinstall 240 feet of fence and level 850 feet of fence. Again, fence that CRMC has already approved in the past. So this is a maintenance assent. By the way, that fence has nothing to do with the Misquamicut Beach Club, and it's not on the Misquamicut Beach Club property. It is all on Watch Hill Fire District property. What you have heard from the objectors over the past few minutes is an attempt to convert a maintenance assent into a dispute before CRMC over a 20-foot wide right-of-way called Fort Road, quote unquote. I'm here tonight on a maintenance application for a split rail fence that's about 1,000 feet in length. So they're talking about a dispute over a 20-foot right-of-way. I'm here talking about many hundreds of feet of a split rail fence. And that fence is within CRMC's jurisdiction. You've approved it before, and you approved it for the good reasons that Mr. August explained a few minutes ago. But it's not within CRMC's jurisdiction tonight to adjudicate the dispute that's in Superior Court over the Fort Road right-of-way. A judge will do that in Superior Court, and ultimately maybe even our Rhode Island Supreme Court. But it's not before the council tonight. As much as the objectors want to blow this maintenance application into that issue. And the only issue I have with Ms. Hall's good staff recommendation is that if, for some reason, that frankly would blow my mind, a judge would find that Fort Road exists, then we want any appeals to be exhausted before we have to remove the fence from that 20-foot area. Not a Superior Court judge, but if it goes to the Supreme Court, all final appeals exhausted. That's my one edit, if you don't mind, to the staff report. But that litigation is playing out in its own forum. It's not before the council tonight. And what is peculiar to me, and I've been in front of this council for 30 or so years, is that these objections that are to the side of what CRMC's jurisdiction is, has delayed the fire district and the conservancy from doing their work all summer. This fence should have been up and fixed before Memorial Day in the high tourist season. But now we've seen, and it's natural, it happens, a lot of damage on the dunes in this fragile ecosystem that is CRMC's duty to protect. And so I ask tonight that you approve our application, our maintenance assent. I ask that the one edit be that we will, and I've offered this, I offered it early in the summer, we will remove that 20 feet of fence among the hundreds of feet of fence if after all final appeals are exhausted, the court says, no, Fort Road exists. Then we'll remove it at that time. But we're not going to say today in front of the council that Fort Road exists, which is what the objectors are trying to get us to do. The fence needs to be put back in where it's been all along and repaired. And I plead that if, and I don't wish this on the state or anyone, that if we have a hurricane or if we have tremendous coastal storms again, and this fence needs to be repaired again, that we don't have to wait months on a maintenance assent, but instead that the staff can approve it. You have excellent leadership with Jeff and Laura, that the staff can approve a maintenance assent of a pre-approved structure like this split rail fence and be able to determine that certain objections are just not within CRMC's jurisdiction, like an objection over whether this road exists or not. And I think from just someone who appears before you quite a bit and has the privilege of doing so, that the staff be able to exercise their good judgment and deep expertise to be able to do that. because we don't want to have to go through this process again. So again, tonight, we respectfully request that you approve our application to reinstall and level this split rail fence so that the vegetation and the dunes can be adequately protected.
Any questions of Attorney Main? Mr. Gomez?
Just one, the issue of the condominium associations came up, and I'm familiar with that had gone through us and looking at that, but I don't see an impact with that. Is there any such impact with it?
No, there isn't, Mr. Gomez. All of the fences on the Watch Hill Fire District property, they're the fee owner. Ms. Hall refers to that too in her report. In fact, I think Ms. Hall did extensive work with the town of Westerly to make sure that the appropriate fee owner was the applicant. We had the required letter from Westerly stating that, you know, these are the plat and lots owned by the fire district. And again, as I said earlier, the Musquamaket Beach Club has nothing to do with this fence. The fence does not touch their property.
So what we are looking for is approval to repair the split rail fencing. And you asked that we include a plan for 20-foot rail removal for right of way if all appeals were exhausted. That was your only addition that you would like to see.
To Ms. Hall's report. That's right, Mr. Gomez.
Thank you.
Any further questions of Attorney Main?
One question, do we have
Yes,
any
Mr.
sense
Flynn.
of the timing of courts looking at this issue?
I'm sorry, I don't. It's still in Superior Court. It's in a discovery phase.
It's a declaratory judgment action. That means, unless I'm mistaken, this is not going to be a jury trial.
Correct.
And discovery means that they're gathering evidence that they will present in a record to the court. They will have briefs. There'll be arguments, I'm sure, and then the judge will decide the case.
That's correct. And let me just note, I mean, Mr. August talked about it, but you know, lots been said since Pete was up here. There's all sorts of trails on Napatri. There's public access to Napatri. We're just protecting the dune and certain vegetation with a split rail fence. But we invite you to come down this weekend. It will be very busy. But there's beautiful trails all across Napatri. There is public access at Napatri.
Thank you. Ms. Hall, does any of the testimony that was given this evening change your opinion?
No, it does not.
All right. Yes, Mr. Gagnon.
Ms. Hall, if you have any objection to what Ms. Main has suggested as making it a final appeal that be exhausted.
I do not personally have an objection. That strikes me as reasonable, but I will defer to the council.
Okay, if I may, if the court decides that Fort Road exists, I'm assuming they're going to say where it exists. They're going to have to do it anyway.
No, I'm saying, yeah, but the part about just changing the condition to when all appeals are exhausted.
Okay.
It just makes it a cleaner package, doesn't it? If we include that. You know?
It kind of let me put it to you this way. Under 82-14, the issue of title to real estate and rights of way, matters of that nature rests with Superior Court. So if this application is to be granted, and then the Superior Court then rules that Fort Road exists, this is where Fort Road exists. I'm assuming that's part of the discovery. Then you can't block it because it's a right of way.
So a suggestion is not to include that?
Go right ahead.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't, it's not like, that's basically what's gonna happen anyway. So include it, but.
Okay. And I just have one more question on the additional stipulations. We're using the standard stipulations and you indicated there was some additional Do you
The
know?
one additional is the one regarding Ford
And,
Road.
and what would they be?
That upon Superior Court judgment and
Okay,
the council agrees, so exhaustion of appeals.
I've got them,
Yeah.
I've got them. Thank you.
And I guess I will clarify that I personally don't have an issue with the judgment of the exhaustion of appeals because as of now, there is public access on Napatri. I think the goals of the CRMP are being met with existing public pathways.
Any further questions of Attorney Main from the council? Right, is the council in a position, a posture for a motion?
Oh, you go ahead.
Mr. Gomez.
Go ahead. Yeah, based on the staff report, finding of fact, and on the presentations brought before us, I would move approval of this application with the standard stipulations and the additional stipulations as presented, which are what the this is it. And oh, go ahead. The additional stipulations regarding Fort Road shall be prepared as well should the Rhode Island Superior Court rule on the location, ownership and usage of Fort Road as a right of way until all appeals are concluded. Any fences that obstruct the area shall be removed. In lieu of fencing, the applicant shall be authorized to place informational signage on their property. The signage may request that pedestrians stay on the existing trails and that pedestrians do not harm the dune habitat. Is that correct?
The motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Gagnon and Mr. Who said it? Mr. Izzy as well. Any discussion? Have your hand raised, Mr. Flynn? I saw you kind of like this. Was that?
No.
Okay.
No, just waiting to vote
All right.
as soon as you get to me.
Motion been made and seconded to approve it. I'll now poll the council. Mr. Flynn,
Aye.
Mr. Izzy,
Aye.
Mr. Gomez,
Aye.
Mr. Russolino.
Aye.
Mr. Gagnon,
Aye.
Ms. Reynolds.
Aye.
I too, Raymond Coyle, vote aye. The application has been approved unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The following one was been certified the weekend, but they did.
Next matter is the Watch Hill Yacht Club, which is 2022-11-010 Watch Hill Yacht Club. Application dredging of 765 cubic yards of sediment from Watch Hill Cove within the marinas MPL, Marina Perimeter Limit, and the beneficial reuse disposal on the Watch Hill Beach located at plat 185 lot 31-1, 1 Fort Road / 151 Bay Street, Westerly, Rhode Island. Yes. The parties for the Watch Hill Yacht Club present, I see individuals before me. Do you want to swear them in?
Mr. Parks, why don't you identify yourself first?
Hi, good evening. Joshua Parks, I'm an attorney representing the Watch Hill Yacht Club. And I have with me here Jeffrey Livingston, who's part of the leadership at Watch Hill Yacht Club, as well as Anthony Mena, who is the engineer who prepared the application.
Gentlemen, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
please, your names have already been stated, but can you spell your names for the record?
N-E-N-N-A.
Livingston, Livingston.
And I expect staff may present, and if it's all right with the council, I'll have Livingston to talk very briefly about the yacht club and its history and use, and Mr. Nana discuss the substance of the application, and I'll reserve comment until the end of public comment. Again, if that's all right.
Okay, it's fine. All right, Justin, you have this one, please.
So we're talking about tonight is that this project is a dredge project for the removal of approximately 765 cubic yards of material from the Watch Hill Cove inside the Watch Hill Yacht Club's Marina Perimeter Limit. This will be on the interior portion of Watch Hill Cove. It's got a Watch Hill Yacht Club's got a building that extends into the water, is elevated. This will be the internal side of that on the within the west and east side. This material is planned to be removed by mechanical means, dewatered onshore on what is the Watch Hill Fire District's land. And then once dewatered, will be reused beneficially on the local Watch Hill beach, right around the corner there. This is a similar project that's been done in the past, once in 2007 and once again in 1998. This is, yeah, has been done before. We consider this a good project with considering use, with beneficial reuse. Is also needed as the current level of sediment is impeding certain performances of the marina, including limiting slip space and preventing access to utilities of the dock that run to the main building. There's no variances requested for this permit. However, it did receive several objections. Two main categories are environmental impacts and relations to the Ford Road, right? Ford Road. And incorrect material, the public notices and so on. I will go through those. Environmental impacts were related to impacts to horseshoe crabs among other fish. Considering this project is going to be done during the dredge window season, which is off season for both hermit crab egg laying, horseshoe crab egg laying and other fishes. That's usually considered what we consider a very mitigating circumstance and will relate less impact of the area. There's a lot of similar habitat nearby. The habitat in general are the same, just reducing the level will not change significantly the area's use for local habitat. And no toxic material was found during any sampling or has been found in the past. This is kind of a well-known material. Most of it comes from the dunes adjacent to the area, flies across the parking lot and accumulates into the water, which is why it's good for use on the beach. It's pretty much the same material. We received a couple objections with the first public notice that we deemed to need a reissuance. Tony Mena, their engineer, updated the plans to include a path around the work area to demonstrate the public access. The reissuance was on August 8th, 2023. Further objections were received, but none requested a third notice. Town Wesley did issue a letter, and it wasn't also a request for reissuance notice. So we moved on with that. There was objections about failure to describe fully Ford Road. The application received new submission and plans that entered a general path through the work zone. To briefly describe the work zone, it's going to be on land. It's going to be where the dewatering takes place. It's going to be where the backhoes are set in order to pull the material out of the water. This is dangerous for people to be wandering through, so there will be temporary fencing set up in order to prevent interruptions into the work area. This is that's necessary. It'll be done in the off season, and there remains access around the area, as demonstrated by the plans. To talk briefly about the legality of Ford Road, as stated by Emily Hall earlier, these application ownership and use of Ford Road is being actively litigated. CRMC is not a party to this litigation. And per RI general law, 8-14 Superior Court has original jurisdiction of all access. And where the title to the real estate or some interest is the issue. This is not an avenue. We don't, staff do not consider this an avenue for any discussion about the legality. There was also an objection about proof of ownership for this work being done. The Watch Hill Yacht Club does not own the land that is the work's being done. That's the Watch Hill Fire District. The Watch Hill Fire District has given their approval through letters for the use of this area. The tax assessors have issued and submitted to with the application. I'm sorry, the applicant has submitted with the application the tax assessor lots of the area, which dictate ownership of the area, of the lots that are being used for the work area. This is how we normally do it. This is a very standard practice, and we've taken that as what it was before. Complaints that the area being removed is considered sandy beach. So there's a couple of cubic yards of sediment which has built up against the bulkhead, which leads into the cove. This does not match a definition of a coastal beach. We want uninterrupted spans of coastline that are subject to wave action that lead up to a high point. Sediment that is accumulated, that is constantly shifting, does not meet this definition. Any impacts to public access during this area? As I mentioned before, but I will be direct, this is temporary. This is going to expect to take 2 to 4 weeks at most. As this is standard for the project, it will be done in the off season, which is done in the dredge window, which is not very few people. It's needed not only for the continuing use of the marina, but it's also needed for the public safety during the work time. There was also a complaint about increased vessel traffic. The number of slips will remain the same in the marina. Right now, the slips that are most impacted are the ones closer to shore, which tend to be smaller vessels. Those are still in use, but it will just, it's not going to change the number of vessels or change the historic use of the area. To the extent that there's any beach closures, it would be for relaying down the sand. Sorry. Oh, there will be no beach closures. To the extent there is any temporary interruption to the beach, it'll be just to lay down the reused material. In conclusion, the recommendation for the reasons here live in that similar projects have been applied for or certainly completed in the past, it is staff's opinion that this application adequately addresses the requirements of the Coastal Resource Management Program. Staff has no objections to the issues of the site for this project. Standard Assent stipulation can be prepared, and the council should the council decide to approve the application.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Skenyon from the council?
Quickly.
Done.
Yes.
The sand, how much sand did you say you were removing?
765 cubic yards approximately.
And we don't require that to sit somewhere before we deposit it back on?
We do. Usually it's gotta be dewatered.
And you're gonna do that, so.
Yeah, that's why they have such a large, like a work area.
Yeah, when I read through it, it just, maybe I read it too quickly, but it sounds like you're gonna take it from here and put it over there.
Yeah, that's the plan.
But you have to like kind of let it dry out and stuff, and pick the right time of year, I would think.
Sand's heavy, wet sand's even crazier heavier. So in general, you let it dewater and then you load it in the back of the truck. So I'm sure the applicants can speak more about what they envision the process to be exactly, but usually you let it drain for a couple of days, then you load it up and then you kind of cycle the trucks.
Yeah, but Jeff, we had talked previously after the storms that sand should have been put off to the side until I guess the spring, so that it wouldn't wash back out to sea again. There's no impact of that here?
No, and that was because the winter storms had already come and gone, and the spring was still right around the corner with the potential for more storms. So the sand wouldn't have any time to consolidate and do what it would normally do in that at that time of year. This time of year, this is the time to dredge, and when there is beneficial reuse of dredge material like we have here, and you can place it on a beach, this is the time to do it.
Good, thanks.
The latest extent of their dredge window is January, end of January, and that's usually before the winter storms. And about, it gives enough time for the sand to, settling. So.
Any further questions of Mr. Skinner? Right, please proceed, sir.
Thanks. I'll just have Mr. Livingston, very briefly, just talk about the applicant's use of those docks and why this project's necessary.
Yeah, Josh did tell me to be respectful of your time, so I won't go through the long history. But the club was founded in 1913, but more important to commission is that the first dock was put on site in 1922. And there's been a dock essentially in the same position the entirety of that time. And so over the years, there's been multiple dredging, as you heard from Mr. Skinner, the most recent in 2007 and 1998. However, if you look back in the records, there's any number of times that we've done this. We use the club seasonally, and the club is used for primarily small sailboats. There are some power boats that come in. We don't really have a marina, if you will, there. Most of the time it's touch and go as people come and go. So from the perspective of the club, this is something that's necessary, something that's been permitted many times in the past, and we're looking forward to you folks approving it yet again. Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Livingston from the council? Okay.
Fernanda?
Well, thank you. I'll just briefly add a few items that or expand on Justin's summary. So we're dealing with two dredge areas on the east and west sides of the clubhouse. The west side of the clubhouse has what Mr. Livingston referred to as their sailing, where the docks are, where the sailboats are stored during the season. So that area there needs to be dredged because the docks have a tendency, now that we've extended this dredging, that the docks have a tendency to sit on the bottom of the cove. We did identify 2 areas for staging for the equipment to properly dredge the areas in question. And we've also outlined the path, which this will be the travel path of the trucks and vehicles to get to the fire district beach just to the south. Couple of things just to address on the beach area, quote unquote, that was mentioned. It's also an area where there's 2 outfalls, catch basin outfalls, on the east side of the ramp to the clubhouse. With the sediment being built up, the drainage lines are clogged and then hence floods the parking lot. So in that aspect, it does introduce a safety issue, especially in the wintertime with icing for pedestrians. So this would alleviate that by removing the sediment from those 2 outfalls. During the dredging, we'll have some turbidity curtains that are outside of the dredge area, and that will prevent any sediment from going out into the cove and keep it within the dredging area. And as Justin mentioned, we did take samples of the material, and material that's being deposited on the nearby beach did not have any contamination in it. And I believe I presented that to DEM, both the analytical results and where we sampled the 2 areas for the dredge. Lastly, all of this is occurring within the permitted Marina Perimeter area of the club, and everything will be done on landward. Nothing, there's will be no barges or anything like that in the water. Everything will be done on the landward side of the seawall. I'll be happy to answer any questions of council.
Any questions of the witness? No, none, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, Counselor, at this time?
I'll reserve until the end.
Okay. Is there anyone else present this evening that wishes to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone present this evening that wishes to speak in opposition of the application?
Hello, my name is Matthew Ferraro. It's my first time at a CRMC meeting. Okay, Mr. Ferraro, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Please state your name and spell it for the record. Matthew Ferraro, Matthew Ferraro. Thank you.
Mr. Langseth, we'll get to you right after Mr. Ferraro's done.
I'm basically here to get clarification. I'm looking at the application. I didn't really come in as an objector or in agreement. Right now, I'm just trying to make the CRM be aware that there is tidal flooding in that area. Mr. Scannion mentioned that, we've worked out a lot of issues with the submitted application. And, I guess I understand that the fire district and the yacht club are going to be very definite about what they submit. But I just sat through the last discussion about a fence, which I didn't oppose. But there was no discussion of how high the water exceeds the banks of the Little Narragansett Bay. I've been a Westerly resident since 1972, 22 years in the Coast Guard. I did 18 out of those 22 years within an area from Manamit Point to Watch Rhode Island. I worked for the Captain of the Port for 13 out of 22 years, which is an unprecedented amount of time. I can understand and read the harbor management plan. And I think you're overlooking the fact that there's tidal flooding. The fact that the fence was damaged by a storm that was documented in the Sun, that Westerly Sun newspaper in the December storm, that, you have basically the bay flooded right up to the fence. Now, I've been to Watch Hill probably a half a dozen times this summer. I'm seeing flooding monthly. And part of that flooding is not on the east side, which was mentioned. It's actually within the part where you're dredging. So, with that said, I would like to clarify in the application that the Fort Road access is listed within the plan as it exists in the harbor management plan. Fort Road access along Fort Road shoreline located off of the bay, running along Watch Hill Cove, adjacent to shops and cabanas, and the pedestrian easement leading to Napatry Point, running along the side of the seawall as a shoreline path and leading through a posted gate to Napatry Beach. This right of way is heavily used in summertime and moderately used in the off season. What I'm objecting to specifically right now is I'm looking at the site plan prepared for the cabanas. And obviously that right of way and the pathway exists along the seawall. It's mentioned there. But at some point during this project, the path is flooded. You're asking people to walk on the seawall through a flooded parking lot. It's dangerous. So can you stipulate where this right of way that currently exists in the harbor management plan can be redirected during the course of this construction, even if it is for 2 months, even if it is in the off season? I deeply respect the actions of the Watch Hill Conservancy, but I hope they're in the 21st century that they're realizing the levels of sea are rising. This is at the forefront in Watch Hill. There's a parking lot to the north side of the bay floods routinely. And now I'm finding that this pathway, which is in the site plan, you're going to have people walking through a flooded parking lot. And you're going to prevent the use of a right of way. Are you aware of that? I don't even think Westerly knows what the left hand and the right hand are doing. I hope you come in and supervise coastal access to the degree that Westerly needs it. I'm asking for clarification on the application for the mean height and low water elevations, nothing more, nothing less. I would like to hear from Mr. August, Professor August, how many times that parking lot has flooded since December 2023. Are you aware of that flooding? Is Westerly aware of that flooding? That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Ferraro from the council? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So am I sworn in or do I swear in again?
I don't think I did. I'm sorry. Mr. Langston, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Okay, so we're talking about the condominium association that was created in 2013. And the condominium association runs from Larkin Road and Bay Street by the carousel all the way down to the Mifflin property, which includes the big condominiums of the Squamish Club, and then goes beyond that for a significant amount of space, all the way through the place where we're talking about the fences. Then it goes back up on the bay side and all the way to the yacht club. And then there's three parts of the condominium that are organized: part 1, part 2, part 3, and then there's an unorganized part of the condominium where the fence is. Now, the yacht club has leased number 2 from the condominium association. I'm not quite sure of the boundaries because this is all recent discovery on my part. So I'm not really sure about where all this exists, but it's clear that the yacht club has leased condominium number 2, or at least part of it. And that is where I believe that they plan to put the dewatering sand. Now the condominium association has a stipulation that there will be no parking of hazardous material. Now, I don't know how, I couldn't really hear very much with the staff about how they consider that sand coming out of the cove and it's dewatering. Is that in CRMC's mind hazardous material or not? I don't know. He may have addressed that already. I really don't know. But the point is that if that is under the CRMC's rules, hazardous material, it really can't be put there. It's got to be put somewhere else. And other people were talking about the flooding, and I've seen it myself where the parking lot is full and, the water's running up and down the parking lot. That's a fairly common event. But if you get velocity, if you get the tide running over from the beach down, running northwards towards the yacht club, and you get velocity in there, God knows where the sand's going to go. So that's really not a good place to put the sand. But I have one question. I think I know how the sand gets to the pile. I think they probably have some kind of a conduit or a pipe or something that pours the sand there. But how does the sand get from the pile to the beach? Is it put on trucks? If it's put on trucks, why don't you just put it on trucks originally, take it away, dewater it, and then bring the trucks back? I would think that that's a far more practical solution than to put the sand on what other people are saying the right of way is, which could very well be, and it creates a hazard. And I don't know whether the sand, which is from a yacht club, I hear that when you dredge out a yacht club and you dewater, I hear, and that's type 6 water, I generally hear that that's not considered good sand until it's dewatered. Well, if it's not good sand, what is it? So these are the questions in my mind, and you know, I would urge the council to get back to understand what this condominium is all about, because it's not totally clear to me, but there's just red flags all over the place. You know, get answers to that, get answers to whether they can put the sand there based on a condominium rule, which says they cannot do. You know, we'll go from there, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Langseth? Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to, I'm sorry. But yep, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
As always, I do.
Even though you've done it for a previous application, please do it for this one. State your name and spell it for the record.
Anthony Palazzolo, ANTHONY PALAZZOLLJR. Even though I've done it earlier, I'm going to provide a disclaimer again, because I always do it to anyone I can find. I'm licensed to practice law in Connecticut and California, not in Rhode Island. I'm not representing any interests here, no clients. I can't because I'm not licensed to practice in Rhode Island. I've done a fair amount of shoreline access advocacy. I've never taken a penny from anyone or represented anyone at any time. As always, I'm here in my personal capacity as a would-be user of the area. Nothing I say here today should be construed as rendering a legal opinion of any kind. I have 4 objections to, very narrow objections to this application, and I believe that all of them can be easily solved by the applicant. So I'll start there. I don't have any problem with the information, the content of the application that's provided. I believe it's accurate. I do, however, believe the application is incomplete. It needs supplementary information. And I believe that this particular plan, although possibly maximally efficient, most cost-effective, most convenient for the applicant, is also the most impactful and intrusive on the right-of-way. I believe that these concerns could be eliminated if the applicant simply chose to move its staging area 150 feet along the seawall, sort of northeasterly along the seawall, and to a further area of the parking lot. If they do that, they move it 150 feet, it would obviously require some hoses that run from the immediate area of the yacht club, and then do their dewatering on the parking lot 150 feet away from the yacht club. The reason why that's a particularly difficult area where the sand is, it's right around the yacht club. There is a condominium complex called the Larkin Street condominium. This is not what Richard Langseth was talking about. This is depicted in the application, and the particular layout shows that the distant corner of the Larkin Square condominiums points right to the yacht club and the sand that has silted up. As a consequence, we have an area with broad parking lots to the northeast, broad parking lots to the southwest, and a pinched off point right there between the yacht club and the Larkin Square condominiums. That's where all the problem is. That's where the silting is, so that's where they want to dredge. They put the staging areas and the construction fence all right in that immediate area. And they've effectively blocked all access through the Watch Hill Fire District property by doing that. Of course, the Watch Hill Fire District owns the property adjacent to the yacht club where the staging area is. I do know they've submitted a letter approving of this plan. But the thing is, there are obligations to allow public access through there. And this particular plan blocks all of the access between the yacht club and the condominiums. Now, you might not realize that there's a right of way there because the applicant failed to include it. In particular, I'm looking at the map provided by the applicant entitled Maintenance Dredge at the Watch Hill Yacht Club. There is no depiction of the Fort Road right of way there at all. That, of course, the Fort Road right of way is in the record, been provided. Again, it was designated by the town of Westerly in 2008. No court has ever limited it or eliminated it. The town of Westerly has never voted to limit it or eliminate it. It's still in existence. And yet it's not depicted here at all. The CRMC submittal checklist for marine dredging and associated activities specifically says in pertinent part, to be accepted as complete, an application to dredge must include the following listed below. For all projects, site plans must include the following information. All streets and rights of way within 50 feet of the property lines of the proposed activity with fixed reference points. Clearly says your own application checklist specifically says the applicant has to show streets and rights of ways in their application in order to be complete. So my first objection is that this application is incomplete, the failure to depict the right of way as required by your submittal checklist for marine dredging applications. They can solve that. They can put it right in there. I think one problem is one of the reasons why they didn't put it in is because if you look at it, it'd be very obvious that they blocked the entire right of way. And so, you know, it's just like them, these Watch Hill interests to omit critical information to game the system and have you approve things when you aren't aware of concerns like this. So there's a material omission in this application. It's the failure to include the Fort Road right of way on their plan. If it were there, you'd see the staging areas block everything. That's why I propose that you move it 150 feet to the northeast. The second objection I have to this application is that it raises questions of legal liability for the CRMC. In my opinion, this is an invitation for the CRMC to violate the rights of the owners of the Larkin Square condominiums under the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution. If you look at maintenance dredge, the map entitled Maintenance Dredge at the Watch Hill Yacht Club, you will see that it depicts the Larkin Square condominiums, including the Larkin Square condominiums property line. I believe it's accurate. I have a map from the Westerly tax assessor that agrees with this. This map is accurate. The problem with it is it puts a balloon here which says pedestrian access will be directed onto a sidewalk around the staging areas for safety purposes. They are directing the public writ large to cross condominium property, to leave the fire district property, go onto the private property of a third party, all they want. Now, to my ear, that sounds a lot like it violates the Constitution under the Supreme Court precedent of Cedar Point Nursery in 2001, which basically said, if the government authorizes third parties to enter private property That's a forced physical invasion in violation of the Constitution. This is an invitation for you to authorize the public writ large to go onto the condominium property around the staging area. And let's remember, Gerald Petros, the attorney for the Watch Hill Fire District, just won summary judgment on the Cedar Point Nursery theory against the rack line plus 10 law. He told the judge, the government committed a taking by authorizing the public writ large to enter private property on the beach. I don't see a difference here. They're asking you to authorize the public writ large to go onto the condominium property when the condominium property has not provided any kind of consent for people to do that. Again, they could solve that if they move the staging areas 150 feet up to the park, another area of the parking lot. That pinched off area will be open as it should be because it's a right of way. People can use the normal right of way and they can stay off the condominium property. But you've got 12 owners here of these condominium properties that, you know, may have a problem with you telling people that they're allowed to physically invade their property. According to the Town of Westerly tax assessor, those owners include Lewis, Matthew, and Florence RLTA, Nicholas Associates LLC, 103 Bay Street LLC, Rochelle's of Watch Hill, Holdridge Building LLC, Bennett William, Hoyt Marine, Capalbo Properties, Britton Geraldine MR Trust number 2, Barber Brandon / Food Dim Kristen JLT, and Anthony Paquette. So I would recommend you speak with Mr. DeSisto of whether it's appropriate to authorize the public writ large to leave the fire district property and to cross the property of the condominium complex. The next objection I have is that I believe that this plan raises concern under state law and town ordinances. With respect to state law, section 11-44-24 reads, blocking or obstructing public rights of way to water. Every person who shall obstruct or block or cause any obstruction of any public rights of way to the water of the state shall be imprisoned not exceeding 1 year or be fined not exceeding $500. I have a hard time understanding how this plan does not violate that state law, given that it blocks the town designated right of way, Fort Road, for its entire width between the yacht club and the condominium, the Larkin Square condominiums. The town ordinance that is of concern is section 86-42, interruption of access prohibited. No person shall block, barricade, or in any way impede the public use or access to designated public rights of way to the water as defined by the RI CRMC or the town of Westerly. There's a town of Westerly right of way that was designated by vote of the town council on October 6, 2008. It's called Fort Road, and this plan would block the entire width of that right of way. It appears to be a violation of that ordinance, and I would suggest you speak with Mr. DeSisto about that. Finally, as I mentioned before, the Watch Hill Fire District requested permission to rebuild their seawall in 1987. They submitted Assent application 87-10-066. It was a special exception application in which they guaranteed that the benefit that it had to provide to the public would be public access through the Watch Hill Fire District property. So in my opinion, that fire district property is encumbered by the stipulation Q of Assent 10-066. They don't have the ability to grant permission while also blocking access. The stipulation that was granted expressly stated, quote, pedestrian traffic to Nappertree Point shall not be restricted, close quote. Their property is encumbered by that. That's what it took in order to build their seawall. That was the exchange, the bargain between the private entity of the fire district wearing its private hat and the public writ large. And the CRMC did a damn good thing in getting that stipulation Q. And here, it's totally ignored. It's impossible for people to walk from Bay Street to Napatry Point when the staging area is there and there's construction fencing. It's entirely blocked. Stipulation Q is violated. Now, final point about this is there is a lawsuit, and it does involve Fort Road. The Watchung Fire District sued the town of Westerly, DEM, and a number of property owners. But that has nothing to do with stipulation Q. It should not impede your ability to reestablish, affirm the viability and enforceability of stipulation Q. I have a copy of the Watchung Fire District's complaint right here. There are 4 causes of action, 4 things they're complaining about. None of them even mention Assent 87-10-66. None of the 4 causes of action say anything about the stipulation Q. It's not a part of this lawsuit. Indeed, the CRM, as Emily Hall told us earlier, the CRMC is not a party to this lawsuit. They couldn't be seeking to invalidate stipulation Q because you are not the defendant. The word stipulation is never even used once in the fire district's complaint. Maybe they have a point, that there is litigation over Fort Road, and that's one of the objections I have here. But an independent objection is that this property is encumbered by stipulation Q, which says that pedestrian traffic to Napatry Point shall not be restricted, and here it's eliminated. It's blocked entirely. So finally, all of these problems can be solved if they move their staging area 150 feet along the seawall to a distant corner of the parking lot. And that's what I would suggest you demand of them, and include the Fort Road right of way in the mapping. Now, when they put the right of way in there, if it makes them feel comfortable, they can put a note. Westerly asserts this is a valid right of way, but we disagree. That would be okay with me too. If you have any questions, I can answer them. Otherwise, I just thank you for your time.
Any questions of Mr. Palazzolo?
I just have a quick question. Mr. Palazzolo, are you familiar with Larkin Square condominiums?
Yes.
And the list of owners that you gave us made it sound like it's a commercial condominium. Is that correct?
I don't know about any commerce associated with the condominiums. The one thing I could say is that you're looking at various property records throughout Watch Hill. It seems that most of them are technically owned by LLCs or corporations. And of course, you know, that may be due to tax consequences and such.
But are you familiar with the structure, Larkin Square condominiums?
I am and have been for 50 years.
Are there businesses there or are there no businesses there?
There are some businesses on the ground floor of that building. And then above there are residences.
Okay. Do you know if there are any restrictions or prohibitions on what people frequent the businesses?
I'm not aware of that.
All right. Thanks.
Well, the only other thing I could tell you here is that I've looked at the record and I haven't found any letters of consent agreeing to allow pedestrians seeking to reach Napatry Point to cross their property.
There's no prohibition about it either, is there?
You would have to ask Mr. DeSisto if that's relevant.
Okay, thanks.
Any further questions of the witness? I thank you,
No,
sir.
but, before you go, can I get a copy of that complaint?
Sure.
Thank you.
Anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition of the application?
It's already passed.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
In opposition. Am I okay? I raised my hand and I just sat.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Please state your name and spell it for the record.
Joy Cordio, COJOICORDIO.
Ms. Cordio, please continue.
Okay, so I'm here, I am a Westerly Town Councilor. And the council, I believe in 23, first voted to object to this application for one reason only. And that was because the applicant failed to fill out the application according to the CRMC checklist guideline. That's it. That is it. I don't care about litigation. You do have a letter from the town manager that was submitted August 24th, 2023. Because we are actually in litigation, I would respectfully request that you hold off on a vote on this issue tonight because the town solicitor is not present. And that's my request.
Thank you. Any questions of Ms. Cordio? Well, thank you.
Okay. So does anybody want a copy of the letter? No?
Yes, please.
Does anyone else wish to speak in opposition of the application?
To Mr. Parks.
Maybe he doesn't. Know if any of the.
Okay.
Okay.
First up, Pat.
Okay. Council, please.
Thank you. And again, it's Joshua Parks on behalf of the applicant. I'll be brief in my comments. I just want to take the last objection first regarding the request to hold this matter. This is a properly publicly noticed meeting. We're here. I've not seen any request from the Westerly Town Solicitor that this should be postponed. So I think we're probably here for a decision tonight, and I think the council should issue one. The objections, much like from the prior application, are really centered around Fort Road. And that's not why we're here. We're not here on an application concerning Fort Road. We're here on an application to conduct maintenance dredging in much the same course and fashion as has been happening at this property, at this site, in the same manner for the past approximately 40 years. Submitted with the application materials, you saw sediment sampling plans. This is all, the sand has all been tested appropriately. It's all safe sand. As Mr. Scannion mentioned, sand is going right back from whence it came, essentially. We also included comparisons to, I believe, the 2007 and 1992, two of the several previous dredging operations. We compared to that sediment, and it's much. There was an issue raised regarding regarding flooding. If anything, it should help alleviate that problem. The sediment is building up against the seawall, which forms the north end of that parking lot. As Mr. Nena testified to, there are two outfalls there. To the extent we get sand away from those outfalls, that should hopefully relieve any area of flooding. The objections also talk a lot about fire district. I just want to make sure we're not conflating various applications, condominium, property owners, what have you. This is the Watch-Hill Yacht Club's application to conduct limited dredging wholly within their Marina Perimeter Limit. I also want to address the suggestion that this would all be fixed if the yacht club simply moved its upland dewatering plan to the north. The dewatering is taking place directly on the landward side from where the dredging is going to happen. As Mr. Netta told you, this is happening from the landward side. This isn't something where you're bringing in, you know, barges and tugs and what have you. It makes the most sense to pump out dewater directly on the close access point, and then once everything's dried out, you put the sand in the trucks, you drive around, and it goes onto the beach facing the Atlantic Ocean. And really, I think that addresses the sum and substance of the objections. I'm happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Any questions of the attorney?
Yes. Do you know how long the dredging operation is going to take from beginning to end? And when it's going to start and when it's going to end?
Mr. Anna can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it should take maximum of approximately a month.
Probably less than that, but yeah.
Probably less than that. And the dredge window is in the off season. So this is happening, it's not happening 4th of July, it's not happening Labor Day weekend. It's also not happening when there are lots of people around in that parking lot. And, you know, I was remiss in not addressing the public access component. This went to CRMC, and the conversation happened between staff and Mr. Nana regarding ensuring there was public access around the surrounding area. Hence why on its sheet 5 of the resubmitted drawings, you'll see the plan which provides for construction fencing, so you don't have people where the excavators and dredge equipment is for this limited window. And they can still safely walk around the parking lot, and then they're directly back on the seawall on each side of the area.
Does any of the work impact this Larkin Square condominium property?
I don't represent Larkin. I can't pretend to, but you know, all of our operation is happening on, you know, the dredging is obviously happening in the water. The dewatering is happening on Watch Hill Fire District land. To the extent public ends up walking on that concrete walkway that's between the Larkin condos and the north side of the harbor there. To the extent people want to walk on the publicly accessible walkway, that's fine. I'm not aware of any objection from anybody at Larkin. I don't think anybody's here tonight in that capacity.
I think those are all the questions I have.
Anything else from the council? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I just want to, Mr. Skenyon, has your opinion changed based on any of the testimony or evidence that's been submitted here this evening?
No, it hasn't.
Mr. Flynn.
Just a question from Mr. DeSisto. The proposal has made a contention that if this plan is approved, we would tacitly be telling people that it's okay for them to trespass on private property. Is that's
No, I actually don't agree with that. I don't see it as a constitutional violation. And by the way, I understand why Mr. Izzy asked the question. There's businesses there, and the public there are invitees. Even if that weren't the case, that's not part of this application. I had a chance to glance at this lawsuit, and I do think it's proper for the Superior Court to determine A, the existence of Fort Road, and B, if there is Fort Road exists, where it exists. That's properly before the Superior Court under 8-2-14. It's a declaratory judgment action. And I think that it's in the proper form right now.
But I think this question is a little bit different.
Oh, yes, I understand what that is, but here's the point. That assumes that there's a Fort Road. That assumes that the Superior Court is going to make that determination. That hasn't happened yet. So I think that puts the council in a position where they have to make that determination ahead of what the Superior Court is doing with this discovery going on. I noticed in some of this that somebody had engaged a surveyor on this. That hasn't been presented here. So that's not something that you have before you. Where's the backstop for that? Even for this condominium, even for the parties to the case, one of which is the town of Westerly, if this application is to be approved, if it is to be approved, and this is to go forward, there's always the opportunity to ask that an injunction be issued against the applicant from going forward on this in Superior Court. That's where it'd be properly had. So I think what you need to do is take a look at what you have before you in terms of the staff report and what you had presented to you tonight and make that determination. Many of these issues really gonna have to be sorted out in Superior Court and perhaps even the Supreme Court too.
So you would suggest that if the Larkin condominium owners had an objection, that what they should do is seek an injunction if this were to be.
Oh, no, it would be others
Others.
that would have rights under this lawsuit. That's the first thing. The second thing is the suggestion that somehow an action by the CRMC would be unconstitutional. And, you know, I mean, what Mr. Palazzolo referenced was the Stilts case. That was a determination as to whether or not a statute passed by the General Assembly violated the Constitution. I don't think that's applicable here. I am not concerned about any liability for any action that CRMC would be taking here. And again, you know, there's an existing case, which is a vehicle, and relief can be had at that level. But you have to take a look at what's before you and make your determination.
Just a comment. It appears we're talking about a month's worth of time. Maybe. What's the test? What's the, you know, and it's off season and all these other things that I heard tonight about when it's going to be done and how it's going to be done. I just don't see an impact. You know, anybody that's going to be walking around down there at that point in time I would think would be perfectly happy to walk around. You know, it's not the 4th of July. I was set up with families and things like that. So it seems to me we're spending an awful lot of time trying to find fault with the presentation, the staff report, when we're talking about a month or less. So that, you know, over and done with before anybody can sign a paper.
Okay. Is the council in a posture or position to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I would move approval of the application with the standard stipulations as described by the staff report.
In the findings of fact based in the staff report too.
Yes.
Mr. Gagnon has made a motion to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Gomez. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll poll the council. Mr. Flynn.
Aye.
Mr. Izzy.
Aye.
Mr. Gomez.
Aye.
Mr. Russolino.
Aye.
Mr. Gagnon.
Aye.
Ms. Reynolds.
Aye.
I too, Raymond Coy, vote aye. The application has been approved unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the different job. Jesus Christ. In the old days, should have done that. Gradually, you know, somebody thinks that how they can sell themselves. With that meeting, she can't get along.
You gotta go into executive session.
Yes, public hearing first.
Public hearing.
It's a public hearing. She says she's probably.
Is that
This is gonna take a while. This is gonna take a long time.
Thanks for
Right, next matter on the agenda is public hearing on proposed rulemaking. Which is number 7, A. Title of rule, management procedures, in parentheses, 650 RICR 10-00-1. Rulemaking authority, Rhode Island General Laws, chapter 46 through 23, and sequential. And Bruce, you have this one?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what this is the, both of these regulations are, they have to do with the administrative penalty matrix that was before the council back in the end of 2023. The administrative fines program, it's been an ongoing initiative for CRMC since 2021, when the legislator increased our ability to impose fines from $2,500 to $10,000. And what we did is we created a matrix to add standards and kind of show a nexus between the final fine amount given by enforcement staff and the reasoning behind it. So what we have here is we issued 2 public notices for proposed rulemaking. One is to the management procedures, section 1.4.15, which includes the majority of the language for the administrative fines matrix. And we also have a proposed rulemaking for the Red Book in section 1.1.13, which it references the administrative penalty matrix guidance and directs readers to the management procedures. And tonight, this is the required public hearing. The notice was issued on August 15th. The hearing is obviously tonight. It's an opportunity for the public to provide in-person comments. And that's it. There's no formal council action tonight.
Okay. Let the record reflect there's no one in attendance in the public to make comments at this time. Close the public hearing. With that, then I would close the public hearing on this particular matter. That's all we have to do on that one, right?
That's all we have to do, Mr. Chair. We will come, we will be back for an actual decision making, but I think Bruce needs to wrap it up.
Wrap it up. Wait now.
Oh, yes, I do have one comment from the public, but this is coming from staff. We did notice there was one typo in the Red Book proposal. It's a citation typo. As proposed right now, it reads section 1.14.15, but it should read section 1.4.15. So I just want to make that comment because we will be recommending you change that when it comes to potential adoption after the public comment period ends.
Okay, thank you. All right, we need a motion to go into executive session.
That's the next order of business. Yes, this will only take about 45 minutes doing it.
I entertain a motion to go into executive session. Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Wait, it's got to be by roll call under the Open Meetings Act.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Who made the motion?
Kevin made the motion and Steve seconded it. Motion's been made and seconded to go into executive session. I will poll the council. Mr. Flynn.
Aye.
Mr. Izzy.
Aye.
Mr. Gomez. Mr. Russolino.
Aye.
Mr. Gagnon. Ms. Reynolds.
Aye.
I too, Raymond Coy, vote aye. We will now go into executive session. Okay, at this time, I entertain a motion to seal the minutes of executive session, please.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Gomez. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Izzy and Ms. Reynolds. I'll poll the council. Mr. Flynn.
Aye.
Ms. Izzy.
Aye.
Mr. Gomez.
Aye.
Mr. Russolino.
Aye.
Mr. Gagnon. Ms. Reynolds.
Aye.
I, Raymond Coy, vote aye as well. We would entertain a motion to authorize council to, or direct council to take the appropriate action as discussed in executive session.
So moved.
Motion made by Ms. Izzy, seconded by Mr. Flynn. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll poll the council. Mr. Flynn.
Aye.
Ms. Izzy.
Aye.
Mr. Gomez.
Aye.
Mr. Russolino. Mr. Gagnon.
Aye.
Ms. Reynolds.
Aye.
I too, Raymond Coy, vote aye. Nothing else to come before us this evening.
We have to announce that no votes were taken in executive
Yes.
session.
You can just say it.
And let the record reflect that no votes were taken during executive session.
Correct.
Good. And anything else to come before the council this evening?
There is not, Mr.
I
Chair.
would entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion made by Mr. Izzy, seconded by Mr. Rossellino. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Bed.